Yo, what's up guys, new Siege video, 4th round in the Siege Tournament Europe server, playing against Aftermath Legends. That's the second time we've actually played Aftermath Legends in the semi-finals. So let's see how it goes. As you can see from the thumbnail, they had a whole bunch of Odins. They actually only did Odin defense. They had MSTs and KBOs. So KBOs, the Khmun, Bastet, Odin, and they had the MST China, Martina, Triana. So those are the only two themes we're hitting, and we're actually mainly just hitting the net 5s. So let's see how that goes. Too bad for this siege I had to work, or during the siege I had to work, so for the first few hours I couldn't do any hits. I could only start hitting when things already were difficult to get back from. But still was pretty interesting. It was actually interesting to see how slow some of these defenses were. Because this one was my Nana outsped his Bastet. Let's say my Nana is okay-ish in the speed, but it is not that fast. I also feel like that the slow KBOs are not that great, because if you hit the Khmun is gonna put the shield on himself, because it's lower HP percentage-wise than the Odin. Therefore, Odin will not get 4 stacks. Also, maybe this was kind of overdone for having 2 revivers in there. Maybe I should have split up the revivers. I feel like this defense is somewhat strong to a guild like Doubt, but is not that strong against guild like most like really siege-orientated guilds. And the main reason why I say that is because guilds that are very siege-orientated, they have a lot of Trianas. If you just build Triana very high HP, minus damage on wind, if the Odin hits something else, Triana will save that unit. If Odin hits the Triana will probably survive. So in that case, I feel like if you have, let's say, 10 Trianas, there are some siege people that do, trust me, then KBO 10 times is actually not that difficult. You have a lot of options in your net 5s that would work. But let's see how far and how creative we get. Because I do not own 10 Trianas. I do not care that much for siege to make 10 Trianas. But I do have creative teams. So last one, LD team, this one, LD team. Let's go, right? Let's go. We can do this. And this team is just pretty cheat. The thing is also that you have to keep in mind, some of these Odin teams were fast, some of them were slow. The last one was very slow. This one looks a little bit more speedy than the last one. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of options, ways, potentials that these teams can work or revolve around. And you kind of have to counter all of them to actually have a safe offense. Because there's some ways, let's say you would one-shot the Odin with an anti-revive unit, but you're actually fighting a very tanky Odin. It is possible that that Odin is going to survive like, what, 40k HP, maybe even 45k HP. So while hitting those, you're not gonna kill that and then you immediately lose. So you gotta keep in mind, you kind of gotta counter everything, not just one. So one of those counters potentially is a Grogan. This case, it was actually Bastet that was pretty fast because the attack bar was pretty far up. I would have outsped even without that. And if you do 51k, Odin does die. It's kaput. Then another option I was thinking about, well, I had to use one of the Martinas, right? So going in with a Martina, going in with a bunch of strips, so that is pretty solid. But yeah, I think China, Martina, Triana is a very, very solid counter against this. There's pretty much not too much that can go wrong here in like any case. As long as your China and Martina do enough damage, your Triana's tanking you enough to survive like at least one Odin attack buffed hit. And then you're just Gucci. Then it's just fairly simple. Clean up, you kill the Odin twice, you clean up a little bit, and then easy go, easy go. So having a lot of China Martinas does really help, but you still need the Trianas. You still do kind of need the Trianas. Can we speed this up a little bit because you know how it works. Khmun against China Martina, no bueno, no bueno, no good. So, and then the next fight we had to fight, of course, one more KBO. Or a few more KBOs. So I wanted to go in with a Reviver and then pretty much use LDs, which are just fairly strong in my case. So in this case, I went for Lima. And with Lima, actually the invisibility buff, well, it was stolen here. I'm not sure if they prioritized stealing invisibility buff. I'm not 100% sure about that. But still, with this, it just takes a little bit of time, but you can see this working out, right? I don't really feel like endangered with this. Apparently, this was also one of those Odins that was a lot more tanky because that was a 32k heal, and it was healing for like 75 to 80% HP, so that's a very tanky one. But yeah, bruising against Lima and Savannah and having a potential backup of a Reviver as a Terranese that can also self-revive makes it fairly safe to go for this team. It just takes a little bit of time. So yeah, that was a hit that went fully on, like full stacks. Didn't even do anything. Invisibility buff OP. So yes, this fight does take quite a little bit of time, but I never really felt like it was very unsafe. Even if my Savannah would die there, he's near to dead as well. I can still revive the Savannah, so there's not too many options for him to actually win this here. Even when proccing like a few times like that. Don't do too much damage on those shields. Those shields are pretty heavy. But yeah, that's the trade-off they make. Do they go for very damagey or do they go like very tanky and that kind of stuff? So this run, it's still like halfway in the clip, but we can speed this up a little bit. You know that I'm not gonna lose this, right? There's no way I'm losing this. Like, I'm just gonna let Savannah fully die, so I actually have the revive up when needed. Revive that, let's go. Go time. So yeah, and then the last one, cleanup, just takes a little bit of time, but going through the shield, at some point an armor break is gonna land, at some point, there we have it. And then we just start chipping as 1 damage. So that is 5 wins. Going into the next round, this round is really betting and hoping on that they don't outspeed me and that it's actually a slow one. But it was not a slow one. So in this case, I'm pretty far behind already on how this is going. I am not sure if this was a tanky one, if I had enough damage. This was kind of on the point that we couldn't really win too certainly anymore. So I was like, let's just go for a little bit of risk. I worked all day. I was a bit tired too. So this was most definitely not the best team I could have went for. If it was a slow one, I feel like I would be close to having enough damage because these units from me actually do quite a lot of damage. But you know what it is on this one. Like, there's pretty much no way I'm winning this like 2v4. Plus, he had a good amount of crits on like wrong element with that Odin, even without like the 15 stacker. Or the 5 stacker. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. It was just not a great team. I'm not gonna lie, not a great team. And you lose. So fighting that exact same KBO once more, but changing it up a little bit. I went in with a super fast Swift Chloe, having a Ganymede, and having a Kakano. I could have done same thing more or less with a Changpeng if I had like a second Chloe, but I don't think I have a second Chloe. Pretty sure I don't. But having the possibilities of going S2 and S3 and having your Chloe move like this fast, it's actually pretty nice. Also, in case that what happened right here, that let's say Odin would steal something, it doesn't really matter because Carcano just kills that. Solid. I like this team. Like, I thought of this team like right on the bat there, and I was like, well, this could actually work. And I think this is going to be like, let's say this becomes very meta, which I think this defense is going to become pretty meta. This is one of those offenses you're going to outspeed 100%, man. There's, like, what's the Chloe base speed right now? 114, crazy stuff. If you have a Ganymede, that would work. I think a Changpeng would also work. The odds of you getting killed is pretty limited, I would say. Especially if you have a shield set in there as well. So I would say this is a pretty solid team, especially when Kakano procs 4 times when, well, everything was dead already, so it doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, that's I think this one is one of the more interesting teams that I did around here. So then, kind of repetitive, hitting one of those shitters once more. Main reason for Harmonia lead, or Harmonia in general, is that the lead is there. The moment you get hit, it's going to reduce like a lot of the HP from the enemy. All of the 3 units here are somewhat tanky, except for the Perna, which is very damaging. But Perna has a second life, so in case Perna gets hit, it's also not the biggest issue. So there are a bunch of like safety options out there to actually make this team pretty viable. So in this case, I did want to kill the Odin just to get rid of the stacks. and to get rid of his passive. But yeah, as you see, this is somewhat doable. Seems very somewhat doable. Perna's not really hitting too much. Well, glancing, that doesn't really help too much either. But yeah, Feng is one of those units that's pretty good into this. So currently we're going into the state where he will have attack buff and go for an S1 full stacked. So let's see how much that does. On who does he do it? 32k, so this is one of those more tanky Odins. In most cases, Odins don't really hit upwards of like insanely amount of damage, and then you just clear it up. And then again, we can speed up the process because you know what it is. Like 2 against 3, it's 9 out of 10. It's like clear, easy victory. Also with the Harmonia, at the moment you actually get like hella stacked on the S1 with 5 stacks and attack buff. You just do the S3 of Harmonia and you just clear a lot of HP back, and you actually do quite some damage on that thing too. So that took a little bit of time, but clearing that one safe and sound. Then might be slight repetitive, but guess what we're hitting? You were right, another KBO. Okay, this is where the point where I got very freaking creative. I was just like, okay, we need to do weird stuff. I have no clue why. Let's go with this. So the Marsha has a second life. In case the Garo was hit, that would be a passive that would have survived it. If it hits the Ayunu in the middle, that would have been a passive to hit it. Plus, both units left and right have a lot of damage. The unit in the middle actually has Vampire, so was maybe not the best offense, but one that actually worked out pretty well. Again, this was a tanky team rather than a speedy team, which also made it easier for me to one-shot the Khmun right off the get-go, and then from this I literally put it on auto because there's no way Ayunu loses to a Bastet, especially if the Ayunu is on Vampire. So yeah, this one is also one of my more interesting offenses of units I normally don't really use, but pretty well worked out in this case. So yeah, that is about 9 hits right now. So we have 1 more hit to go. I actually was looking for another KBO to hit, but there were no more KBOs to hit. So I actually had to go for one of the MSTs. And I ruined up my Tractor, Windy, and Lulu with insane good runes, really good artifacts. And yeah, I noticed that this team is just very, very strong against China Martinas. They need to proc a lot of times. Do they actually want to get rid of, like, even like properly damage this team? Like, I don't know, man. Tractor and Windy are just so strong. They can't be armor broken. They keep stacking shields. There's a lot of healing, and this thing does a lot of damage for no reason. This thing, the damage from the Tractor is okay-ish, but the Tractor from Windy is a lot. And that thing is still tanky as hell. It's just all additional damage artifacts and that kind of good stuff. But man, I'm pretty sure that these China Martinas from this guild, they are very good runed. They barely touched my units. Like, literally did like nothing. Probably, maybe this is a tanky one though. And tanky ones are probably the easiest to hit with this kind of offense. But, well, I'm pretty sure they're tanky. But even like a speedy damage you one of China Martina, they do nothing, man. It equals to nothing. We can speed this up like 4 times. It just takes a while. But look at the HP bars of my units, man. They're not depleting like anything. It just takes a while. Oh yeah, and someone took my KBO, so I had to hit this. So yeah, that's what I wrote right there. But man, look at that. There's no damage depleting for me whatsoever. Easy. So yeah, that is it for the Siege tournament, boys. I went for a 9-1 in both hits. No, this is not a full Glorious tower. They actually named multiple people Glorious because they're tryhard in Siege, which we are not. It's actually a good tactic, like, not gonna lie. So yeah, they are playing Aftermath EU. So Aftermath Legends against Aftermath EU once more. They're also both the most tryhard guilds in Siege, which also represents that they are doing very well in Siege. So yeah, end of Siege tournament. I think we got 4 pony skins, which I guess is Gucci for me. I only need 3. If you haven't seen it yet and you're not following me on Instagram and you're not on the Discord, I pulled a new LD5 and we're gonna make some videos on that later as well. So if you haven't yet, Like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram, follow join the Discord as well to keep up to date with like the new kind of LDs that I'm pulling like every week. This is literally, I checked it. I pulled my Lima 7 weeks ago, and I pulled my Seimei 13 weeks ago. I'm lucky as fuck. Not getting the best LDs though, I can spoil that much, but if we see this one being buffed right now, I think we can kind of feel a trend of coming. So, Kantos, if you're watching, I think you should still buff this one because it's kind of mediocre. It's kind of lacking like the unique value of an LD. But I talk more about that in the video specifically for that unit. So guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned and see you in the next one.